So just to be clear for folks, we're not going to spend a lot of time with introductions this morning. How far back do we go? We used to watch Beavis and Butthead together, and now we're two guys in gray suits. So it's been a while. It's been a minute, as they say. So 6 weeks ago, I gave a sermon here, and I held up a poster tube that you sent me in the mail. You remember that? You sent me a poster on I think a Tuesday. But by the time the poster had arrived, the invasion had begun. And it was almost like a snapshot in time from a different era, even though it had only taken about 48 hours to arrive in the mail. Can you talk just for a minute or two about, on a personal level, about how your life changed about 6.5 weeks ago?
Sure. Thank you, Dave. And I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to be here with you and join your congregation. And just to say that this is an incredible place, and the service has been amazing to witness. And I look forward to see where this congregation goes. I know you have a big vote later today. And so in the last 6 weeks, my life has changed dramatically in the sense that what I do during the day has changed. So how I devote my time to activities during the day has changed. I spend a lot of my time thinking about home and how to help physicians take care of their patients, the wounded. But what also has changed is I think who I am and how I feel about the world. My days are spent sort of traveling between sadness, anger, feelings of helplessness, and also hope, resilience, and unity that I've seen my people exhibit. And so I guess I would say is that my life now is just a much wider range of emotion than it had been before the war.
It's ever present, right? You have 2 young children.
Yeah.
It's there when you talk to your children. Yeah. It's there when you're working.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. And so I have 3 jobs: my job, and my children, and now the work that I do, trying to help individuals, volunteers, and physicians at home in Ukraine. It's an all-pervasive feeling that is with me all the time. And I actually reflected the other day on something that I did. So in addition to being a physician, I'm also a teacher, and I teach at the medical school, and I spent a couple of hours with young doctors or young students who are becoming doctors, where all I did was just talk about pulmonary and physiology and things that they need to learn. And it was just an incredible 2 hours that I spent that I didn't think about the war, that I think about the people, what they're going through. And I realized that the life before February 24th was incredibly different than it is now for me.
Yeah. So we spent a few hours together a few weeks ago, and I can't remember whether it was a text message or a call. I think it was a call.
Yeah.
You picked up, and I didn't know whether you were speaking Ukrainian, Russian, or Polish. It was not English, and it turns out you were on the phone with a guy who was trying to pick up some boxes in a garage in Poland, and he was asking you, how many boxes am I supposed to pick up at this garage in Poland, right? So what was that all about?
Sure. So this was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was our first attempt to deliver dialysis supplies that are much needed in Ukraine. And what we learned is that some of the humanitarian efforts that the current NGOs are working with are leaving some gaps. And so I spoke with a physician in Ukraine, in a hospital in Ukraine, a critical care doctor, and he said we needed dialysis supplies. We have patients, wounded soldiers who can't get the care that they need. And so we've identified a place in Poland that we were able to purchase these supplies from. And one of the challenges is how to get them into a war zone. And so the way that that happens is by people who live there, people who care. And so there was a student who is a medical student in Ukraine who ended up crossing the border and going to a auto mechanics shop to which these boxes of dialysis supplies were delivered to. And we were just wanting to make sure that we got all the dialysis liquids and all the dialysis needles and everything else that needed to be provided for those patients, and make sure we didn't miss one. And so he was just asking, what do I need to do? How many boxes? What's in there? You know, can I fit it in the car? And so this was sort of our first shipments. They got delivered to the city of Lviv. Those are the supplies that actually were taking care of a soldier the next day. And we were able to get these supplies within 3 days of the request. And for most things to come from the US or Western Europe, it takes weeks.
So and since that point, 3 weeks ago, you've scaled up, right?
Yeah.
You've partnered with other Ukrainian American doctors at Yale, and you've joined forces to scale up. And so can you talk about what that effort has been like over the last few weeks?
Yeah, thank you. And so I had no idea that there were other Ukrainian physicians at the university. We all sort of work in silos. I work in my silo of critical care and sleep medicine, and I research sleep physiology. I take care of patients in ICU. And when the war happened, we received a message saying that the university president was consoling us and sending all the best wishes and praying for us. And I was wondering, who is us? Who are we? And so with that message, I was able to connect with 10 other physicians, from psychologists, psychiatrists, to obstetricians, surgeons, pediatricians. And we all had this same feeling of needing to do something, feeling of helplessness. How do we provide for the war without short of going there? With that group of people, we were able to reach out to various hospitals around the country, identify specific needs that were there right now, and then establish a network of various companies that sell equipment, that's medical equipment, that are located in Poland, Hungary, and even within Ukraine. And so by doing that, we're able to get supplies pretty quickly to hospitals that need them. And
what kind of supplies?
Yeah, so far we've delivered large IVs that are needed in cases of wounded soldiers who are bleeding out quickly. So you have to support them. We've delivered breathing tubes. We delivered tubes to drain blood and fluid from around the lungs that would cause someone to die if not treated adequately quickly. And we've procured ultrasounds and other critical care supplies that people need.
So I know you've been talking to doctors, critical care doctors in Ukraine. You were talking about a young woman yesterday.
Yeah.
And can you give us a snapshot on what life is like for someone like her or other doctors that you've talked to over there and what they're going through right now?
Yeah, and so Ukraine is a big country. Depending on where you are, the lives are different. So if you're in the west of the country, which is relatively safe from the shelling and the bombing, the physicians there certainly work hard, but they still are able to go home and be with their loved ones. But if you go back to the eastern part of the country, which is the city of Kharkiv, which is a city of about 2 million people, that's currently under major shelling by the Russian military. And I've talked to a physician. She's 29 years old. She is a director of a critical care unit there, anesthesiologist. Their hospital is a 500-bed hospital that takes care of usually wounded soldiers, injured soldiers, and they expanded from 500 to 1,200 beds in a matter of 2 weeks. Her intensive care unit expanded from 8 beds to 24 beds, and the physicians, nurses, respiratory therapists, they live at the hospital. They don't go home. Since March 1st, this woman has been sleeping, eating, and taking care of patients for 30 plus days. It's just heartwarming, inspiring, and what keeps me going to doing what we're doing is amazing things that people are doing in Ukraine. Everyone is doing something. Everyone has a part to play. And just the courage and resilience that people are exhibiting is inspiring amidst the destruction and amidst the death.
So I think that's a good segue into what can we do? I think that we all would like to do what we can, where we can, when we can, to the best of our ability. We recognize, I think most of us recognize that innocent people have suffered immeasurably during the course of this invasion. And, we're not going to beat around the bush. You came here to challenge us and to encourage us to participate in this rather than feeling like we're not quite sure what to do or how to do it. So how can we help you accomplish what you're trying to do right now?
Well, I think hearing the story is a good start, and being aware of what's happening is a great start. In a concrete way, in a very physical way, there are medical supplies that need to be delivered to the hospital in Kharkiv, to the hospital in Kyiv, and the hospital in Lviv that are taking care of wounded soldiers and volunteers from the war. And so what we need, we have a database of specific things that are necessary, and we have suppliers who can provide them. And what we've been doing is fundraising. And so what we need are portable ventilators to transport wounded from the field to the intensive care units. We need those large IVs. We need dialysis supplies. We need defibrillators, which are essentially batteries that shock the heart back into life if somebody's heart stops. We need bandages, and we need supplies for filtering blood, basically. And so all of that comes to a cost of about $200,000, which is where we're at now in terms of what we're looking for within the next couple of weeks. And so if we can raise that money, we can deliver supplies within 2 to 3 days to the places that need them. And one of the most challenging things in a war zone is logistics. So how do you deliver what you need to the place that it needs to be? And one of the things that we have been successful at is arranging for territorial defense unit convoys and military convoys to deliver these things to hospitals. And so what I'm here to do is to raise awareness. Thank you for your support, and also to raise money to be able to deliver those supplies to the physicians and patients that need them.
Thanks. So I thought that we would, as we move towards a close, I thought we would try to make our conversation just a little more personal again. We started personal, and we'll end it with the personal, which is that you're from Western Ukraine, from Lviv, and you still have family back in the area. How's your family doing? What is life like for them at the moment?
Yeah. Thanks for asking, Dave. My family is physically safe. They live in the western part of the country. There's only been a few episodes of shelling. I have my mom's sister and her husband. She was a chemistry teacher. He is a biophysics professor that's retired, who's had a stroke and has other medical issues. And they're in their 70s, and they lived in a very comfortable apartment in the city, downtown, walking distance to all the things they needed. Because of the recent bombings and shelling, because their apartment is right next to a military target, they had to go to a summer house in the countryside that has running water, but no heat. Heat has to be provided with firewood, and there's an outhouse. And so in sort of that stage in their life, they're living there in a peaceful way. And then I have a first cousin who I grew up with. He's married, has a 5-year-old daughter, and he is a dentist. And so they have remained in the city because there are people who still need his care. And their life is different now, so there's no school, so the kids are learning remotely. There are sirens at night, 3 to 4 times a night, during which times they have to make a choice. Do I get out of a warm, comfortable bed and go into the cellar? Or do I stay in bed and risk it? And so they've had trouble sleeping and resting. They've all been participating. And so my cousin is doing volunteer work within the hospital. His wife is doing volunteer work at the train station, accepting refugees from Eastern Ukraine. And so they're doing their part. I do have friends who lived in Kyiv who now live in gyms in Poland with their families, awaiting placement and residential cards in Poland or moving on to Canada. And so their apartments have been destroyed and they have no place to go back to.
The city of Lviv, where you're from, the population at the beginning of February was what, and what is it now?
Yeah, so the city I'm from is about 750,000 people, so about the size of Boston proper. And then within a few weeks, the population swelled to about 1.3 million. Mostly women, children, elderly. And every single apartment in the city is occupied. The schools are occupied by refugees, theaters, museums, large venues like soccer stadiums are occupied by the refugees. And there's a large effort to try to help people gain some sort of a normalcy, a sense of security, figure out how to get the kids to start attending school again, even if virtually, finding people jobs. But the city has swelled in population, and there's quite a bit of need for social aspects of this migration.
Thank you. I'm not sure how long. What's the time, Katrina? Just okay. It's 11 o'clock. So we need to stop. That's kind of the way that it is. We could talk for hours. We did last night.
Yeah.
So we won't subject everyone else to our pontificating for another couple of hours. So. Yes, that would be good. So there's a QR code, right?
Yes.
If you look in your bulletins for information about how to donate, you should be able to find it readily there. We do, of course, appreciate any, thank you, Linda. We do appreciate any and all donations that the outreach team will direct towards United for Ukraine, which is now staffed not only by Andre, but by several physicians. They are routing money through an officially recognized 501c3 at Yale, so the money is being properly accounted for, and so on and so forth. The money will be used for medical supplies in Ukraine and will be in the hands of physicians shortly after we offer our donations. So any and all help that we can provide, let's do what we can, where we can, how we can in this moment to help support innocent people amidst all of this chaos and catastrophe. Thank you very much for being here, Audrey.
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you, guys.